Greetings, YouTubian buddies. My name is Ultimate23Dragon, and welcome to the most requested countdown video ever. Ever since I did my Worst NASCAR Driver Countdown, people have always wanted to know who I considered as the best drivers in NASCAR. And now I'm finally going to tell you my opinion about who the best drivers in NASCAR is. Now, the reason this video took so long is because I had to do some investigating of my own in terms of every possible driver I considered. And in the end, I considered 25 drivers. These are the drivers that I considered. Only 10 of them will make this list. Well, actually 11, because 2 that I had slotted for 10th I really could not pick between. But anyway, the reason this list took so long is because I wanted to figure out a way where everybody could agree on the list without ridiculous backlash, like my original Worst NASCAR Drivers Countdown video did. Only because I put Kyle Busch 10th, woo. But anyway, I wanted to make sure that I would get this right based on the factors that I've determined. And the factors that I've determined is win total, percentages of wins, top 5s and top 10s, how many championships, any big wins, any unique stats, anything history making, and anything that is downright impressive to me. So with that in mind, here is the most requested top 10 countdown ever. The best NASCAR drivers ever. I have 2 drivers considered for number 10, and it was so hard to pick between the 2 of them, so I just put them in a mini tie for 10th. Now, number 10, based on your opinions, is either the first driver I selected for the number 10 spot, which is Tim Flock. Now, Tim Flock is one of the original NASCAR drivers who was around for pretty much the beginning and part of the 1950s. Now, Tim Flock's stat says he has 39 wins, and based on the calculations of his stats, I determined that from all of his starts, 21% of his starts were wins, 54% of his starts were top 5s, and 69% of his starts were top 10s. That's pretty dang impressive. Also, he was the 1952 and 1955 NASCAR Cup champions. He was the first driver to win multiple NASCAR titles, which was pretty big back in those days. To be the first to do anything is pretty dang impressive. Also, I don't know if you consider this stat or not, but he's also the only driver to win with a monkey in his car. I know that may sound stupid, but that's actually true. You name me another driver who's done that. As impressive as he is, I think most of you will probably consider this person for your number 10 slot. And I consider him in the tie with Tim Flock. The other driver that I have in this spot is Bobby Allison. The main person of the Alabama gang, Bobby Allison, has amassed a total of 85 Cup wins. Now, 12% of his starts were wins, 46% of his starts were top 5s, and 62% of his starts were top 10s. Now, while the stats percentage-wise is lower than Tim Flock's, there's also this factoid that I do not think Tim Flock matches. Did you know that among the 23 owners that Bobby Allison has drove for in NASCAR, that's right, 23, he won for 13 of them. That's over 50%. That's pretty impressive. Along with this stat, he also won the championship in 1983. Bobby was age 45 when that happened. He's the oldest driver ever to win the Cup title. Also, throughout his illustrious career, he also is a 3-time Daytona 500 winner in 1978, 1982, and 1988. And for those of you who care about the minor levels, he also has 2 wins in the Nationwide Series and 2 wins in the K&N Pro Series West Series. That didn't sound right, but that's how I wrote it, so. So depending on which driver you are bigger with, one of these 2 would be your number 10 pick. I just couldn't decide between the 2. 9 is a driver that most of you are probably familiar with. In fact, I think all of you should be familiar with this driver because he still races in NASCAR. Tony Stewart. Now, Tony Stewart's in this countdown because he is one of the best drivers ever in all of auto racing, not just NASCAR. But I'm just considering his NASCAR stats here because this is a NASCAR countdown. Now, the stats here are as of 2013. I didn't put in 2014 because when I was doing my searches for this, 2014 wasn't complete yet. So here we go. As of 2013, Tony Stewart's stats are as follows. He has 48 wins, 9% of his starts are wins, 34% of his starts were top 5s, and 56% of his starts were top 10s. That's pretty good. He's also one of the Triple Crown winners, winning in all 3 National Touring Series with 11 nationwide wins and 2 truck wins. He's also, of course, as most of you probably know, 3-time Cup champion. He won the championship in 2002, 2005, and 2011. Now here's some cute stats about this. He's the only driver to win in the Winston, Nextel, and Sprint Cup eras. 2011 was also the closest title victory in the history of the Chase era. Suck on that, Carl Edwards. However, there is a negative when it comes to this particular stat. Why? If the Chase didn't exist, he would only be a 2-time champion. He would not have won the championship in 2011. It seems the Chase backfired a little on brainless France and what he actually wanted. Edwards as champ, so But anyway, Tony Stewart is one of the best drivers out there, admit it. And I'm pretty sure that as his stats grow, it's likely that, in terms of me revising it, if all the drivers in the countdown retire, he might actually be a little bit higher. But that's for future debate, so let's move on. Number 8 in the countdown is one of the early gentleman racers. And everybody knows that I am big with the gentleman racers. The guys who race nice, honest, fair, clean, and honorable. A majority of my NASCAR dozen are like that. But this is the original gentleman racer as far as I'm concerned, and one of the best ever, hence why he's in the countdown. The driver in this case is Ned Jarrett. Now, Ned Jarrett, throughout his career, now keep in mind he raced only 13 years. He has 50 wins. That's pretty dang impressive. He probably could have won more if he'd raced longer. But being the family man that he is, he decided to stay home and retire early. In his brilliant but brief career, he has 50 wins in 13 years. 14% of his starts were wins, 53% of his starts were top 5s, and 68% of his starts were top 10s. And in case you're into the minor series, or extinct series in this case, he also has 1 win in the convertible series. Wow. He's also a multi-time champion, winning the championships in 1961 and 1965. And as I said earlier, he is one of the early gentleman racers. Being one of the early day gentleman racers and not having legit beefs with anyone, he is one of the best of all time, in terms of every way, shape, and form. I know you guys are probably going to give me a little bit of heck for this one because I'm pretty positive most of you probably do not know who this is. But I'll explain it for you. Number 7 is a driver by the name of Herb Thomas. He was a driver that existed for pretty much most of the 50s. Now here is his stats. He has 48 wins in 228 starts. That sounds impressive. Here's how the stats spell out percentage-wise. 21% of his starts were wins, 54% of his starts were top 5s. That's right, over half of his finishes in races were top 5s. 68% of his finishes were top 10s. Herb Thomas also has the intriguing statistic that he, along with Tim Flock, has the highest percentage among the drivers in this countdown and overall among the 25 nominees for this countdown that has the highest win percentage among all the drivers, both with 21%. In addition, he had back-to-back 12-win seasons, which is pretty good back in the day, believe me. He's also a 2-time Cup champion, and 5 out of 6 seasons in a row, he finished either first or second in points in his span between 1951 and 1956. He's also a 3-time winner of the Southern 500. Now, why did I consider the Southern 500 instead of the Daytona 500? Well, the Southern 500 was the biggest racing event in NASCAR during his time. He also won the race with the largest field in history, which was 82 cars back in the 1951 Southern 500. In addition, there's this interesting factoid. He won 48 races before he turned 34 years old. Only 2 other drivers have won more by that age: Richard Petty and Jeff Gordon. That's pretty elite company to be in, and that's why I considered him one of the best drivers in NASCAR history, despite his short career. Number 6 is the other current driver as of this taping who is in this countdown, Jeff Gordon. Now, once again, like Tony Stewart, I go up to the 2013 season because, once again, I did not consider 2014 because when I was doing my investigations and searches for this countdown, 2014 was not complete, so I couldn't include them. So, Jeff Gordon, up to the 2013 season, has amassed 88 wins. 12% of those starts were wins, 42% of those starts were top 5s, and 58% of those starts were top 10s. He also has 5 nationwide wins, in case you care about that. There's some pretty interesting stats when it comes to his Cup champion status. As everybody knows, he is a 4-time Cup champion, winning the championships in 1995, 1997, 1998, and 2001. But there's also these 2 interesting stats. He'd be a 6-time Cup champion if the chase did not exist, because he also would have won the championships in 2004 and 2007. However, if all of the years he raced were under the chase format, he'd only be a 2-time Cup champion. Makes you a little curious now, doesn't it? He has also won the Daytona 500 3 times, 1997, 1999, and 2005. The reason that Jeff is a little bit lower on this list is because many people have complaints about him being a dirty driver and complainer over the years, especially those who are fans of Rusty Wallace or Dale Earnhardt Sr., or both. But other than those negative stats, he is pretty good in his own right, so we do have to give him his due. We now move into the top 5 of this illustrious countdown. And number 5 is one of the all-time greats, Lee Petty. Lee Petty has amassed 54 wins in his NASCAR career. Among that, 13% of his starts were wins, 54% of his starts were top 5s, and 78% of his starts were top 10s. That by far is the largest among all 25 nominees in this particular countdown. He in fact has the largest record for the top 5 and top 10 finishes. Although in top 5 he also ties with Herb Thomas and Tim Flock. He also has these particular statistics. He has 2 wins in the NASCAR Convertible Series. He's also won the 1954, 1958, and 1959 Cup Championships, being the first drivers who win 3 championships in that particular series. In fact, he's never finished outside the top 5 in points in 11 straight years. In fact, that streak began in the first year in NASCAR history, 1949. He also won the inaugural Daytona 500 in 1959, sealing his status as one of the all-time greats throughout NASCAR history. His illustrious total would probably even grow more if his career did not end early. Number 4 on this list is one of the toughest drivers in NASCAR history. And whether you're old school or new school, more than likely you'll agree with me. The number 4 greatest driver in NASCAR history to me is Cale Yarborough. Cale Yarborough has amassed 83 Cup wins in his awesome NASCAR career. 15% of those starts, though, were wins, which is pretty lower compared to the others, but you'll see why he's higher in a minute. He also has 46% of top 5s in all of his starts, and 57% of his starts were top 10s. And he also has one K&N Pro Series West win in one start, so. One of the reasons he is higher on the list than the others is because he was the first to win 3 straight championships in a row between 1976 and 1978. In fact, he finished either first or second in points 6 out of 8 straight years, which was 1973 to 1980. And there's also this interesting statistic. If all of his years were under the chase format, he still would have had won all of his championships he originally won, plus an additional 4th title in a 5-year period. That's pretty interesting now, isn't it? He also has 4 Daytona 500 wins in 1968, 1977, 1983, and 1984. You all would probably kill me if I did not put this guy in the countdown. I ain't big with him, but I'm gonna give him the respect he deserves, because that's what I do. Number 3 is Dale Earnhardt Sr. Now, while Dale Earnhardt Sr. has 76 Cup wins, only 11% of those starts were actually those 76 wins. 42% of his starts were top 5s, and 63% of his starts were top 10s. Another intriguing statistic that not many others can claim is that he actually has a lot of dang wins in other series. Compared to only 1 or 2 or 3 in other series, he has 21 nationwide wins. And 50% of those starts were wins. He has a higher winning percentage in the nationwide series than he does the Cup series. Wow. As everybody knows, he's a 7-time Cup champion with 2 different teams. But there's also these negative facts against him when it comes to his championships. Many people, in fact most people, consider him only a 6-time Cup champion, because everybody knows that NASCAR flat out screwed Mark Martin in 1990. Also, if all of his years in NASCAR were under the chase format, he only would have been a 5-time Cup champion. I know, it sounds weird, doesn't it? But that's actually true. He's also had some bad luck with the Daytona 500, though he did get his shining moment in 1998. However, there is another negative about Earnhardt, which most of you will probably know. He is very infamous for dirty driving. But one of the reasons it does not deduct against him is because at least he has a sense of humor about it when it happens to him. Most of the time. But still, even though I'm not big with the dude, I still have to give credit where credit is due. Because that's what I do. And that's why Dale Earnhardt Sr. is, sure enough, the number 3 best driver in NASCAR history. Number 2 is Richard Petty. That's right, I said it. He's only number 2. He's not number 1, and you'll find out why in a little bit. But anyway, back to Richard. Here are his stats that pretty much all NASCAR fans should know at this point. He has 200 wins in the Cup Series. 17% of his starts were wins, 47% of his starts were top 5s, and 60% of his starts were top 10s. He also has 1 win in the Convertible Series and 3 wins in the K&N Pro Series West. And as you guys probably know, he's also a 7-time Cup champion in 1964, 1967, 1971, 1972, 1974, 1975, 1979. Try saying that 5 times fast. He's also won the Daytona 500 7 times. 1964, 1966, 1971, 1973, 1974, 1979, 1981. It's pretty intriguing because 5 of the 7 times he's won the 500, he's won the championship. That's pretty dang impressive. He's also a multi-time Most Popular Driver winner, only surpassed by both Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt Jr. That's pretty impressive. There's also this impressive stat. In 1967, he won 27 of the 48 races. Now, in comparison to NASCAR today, since there are 36 races in a NASCAR season, if you downsize terms of percentages and fraction-wise, that's basically saying that a driver in today's NASCAR would have to win approximately 20 races in a season. He's also a very honorable racer. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, besides doing pretty much all the right things, there's also this intriguing fact. He left Petty Enterprises, his own family team, after the 1983 season, because in the fall Charlotte race, his team blatantly cheated to try and give him an advantage, something he was not aware of until later on. That irked him, and it made him leave his own family team. He's that honorable. He's also very sociable. He's the one that started all the autograph stuff that you see drivers do today. And he's also pretty dang tough. To be around between the 50s and the 90s, racing for that long, and going through all of the crazy features that the NASCAR people up to date didn't have to go through in terms of safety, that's pretty bold. And that's why Richard Petty is one of the best ever. A lot of people would have put him number 1, but I put him number 2. Let's ask the question. Who of the remaining drivers in the nominees could possibly top Richard Petty? Well, let's find out. So if Richard Petty was number 2, who among the remaining nominees could possibly be number 1? Alright, I've made you wait long enough. Here is number 1. Zoops, wrong countdown. That's the number 1 person for top 10 favorite NASCAR drivers. But you pretty much know that because he's in all my intros. Anyway, here's the real number 1. Number 1 in this countdown is David Pearson. Now, why is David Pearson number 1 to me? Well, let's see. He has 105 wins and 574 Cup starts. Now, while 105 is still lower than 200, which Richard Petty has, his percentages are actually all higher than Richard's. Compared to Richard's 17% wins, David Pearson has 18%. Compared to 47% top 5s for Richard Petty, David Pearson has 52%. And compared to 60% in top 10s, David Pearson has a 64% top 10 finish stat. He also has 1 nationwide win. Now, even though being a 3-time Cup champion in 66, 68, and 69 is a bit low compared to Richard Petty's 7, you'll see why he's the number 1 guy. David Pearson also won that incredible 1976 Daytona 500 finish against Richard Petty. He is the driver who is the most honorable racer that was Richard Petty's main opponent throughout Petty's entire career. Now, the main reason that David Pearson is number 1 is this factoid. Richard Petty has completed a majority of the seasons in NASCAR with every single start completed. Did you know that David Pearson has never attempted all of the races in one season of NASCAR? The closest he's ever came to completing an entire season was 61 of 62 races in 1964 and 48 of 49 in 1968. That's huge. It makes you wonder, what would David's stats be if he completed or attempted to race in every race, every year, throughout his career? I have a guesstimation, it's only me, I don't know about you guys, but I have a guesstimation that David would actually more outdo Richard in terms of the stats. He'd probably have 200 wins as well, and maybe Richard would not, I don't know. But considering he has 105 wins and only 574 starts, that pretty much says that David Pearson, if Pearson and Petty compete at the same level every single week, instead of sporadically like Pearson did, it's possible that David Pearson, without a shadow of a doubt, would be the greatest driver in NASCAR in every way, shape, or form. That's why I took these stats into account. That's why I did the countdown the way I did. I investigated everything. And based on what I believe, and what NASCAR could have been like if Pearson raced full-time, that's why I believe David Pearson would be the greatest NASCAR driver in history. So that's it for this countdown. I hope you guys enjoyed it. These are the top 10/11 greatest drivers in NASCAR history. Who do you guys believe are the best drivers in NASCAR history? And give me your reasons. This countdown was a challenge, but I managed to get it done. And now you know, in my opinion, based on everything I know and showed you guys, who I believe is the best drivers in NASCAR history. David Pearson is my number one. Maybe he's not yours. Tell me, who do you believe are the greatest drivers in NASCAR history? And give me your reasons. I hope to hear all the cool comments, and let's embrace debate. This is Ultimate 23 Dragon, and that's my final answer.
See what I go through on a daily basis.
Yes, that's why I love you.
That's true. I'm the only one that's up in there.
I beg your pardon.